Pardon me, are you Adam Graham?
The very same. And this is my old-time radio snack wagon.
Welcome to the Old-Time Radio Snack Wagon, where we serve up a bite-sized portion of old-time radio. And now, here's your Snack Wagon host, Adam Graham.
It's time for a brand new season on the Old-Time Radio Snack Wagon. And we're beginning our new season on a historic date. On this date, 215 years ago, Abraham Lincoln was born in Hodgenville, Kentucky. To those of us in the United States, Lincoln's story is one of the best known of all of our great statesmen. His humble beginnings and his rise to power with limited education to become one of the greatest lawyers in his state, and then one of America's greatest presidents. His honesty, his wit and humor, the brilliance of the words he left behind in such enduring speeches as the Gettysburg Address and the Second Inaugural. And then there were the burdens and sadness he bore through one of the most challenging presidencies during America's Civil War, and then finally his tragic assassination. It's a compelling story that has been told in so many books, television programs, and films. Many fine actors have played the 16th president. Walter Houston, Henry Fonda, and Daniel Day-Lewis are among the most prominent. But perhaps the longest-lasting association with the part was Raymond Massey's portrayal of Lincoln. Massey played Abraham Lincoln in the stage play Abe Lincoln in Illinois in 1938. It became a film in 1940, and Mr. Massey received an Oscar nomination for his portrayal. Today we're returning to the Rudy Vallee program, when Massey was relatively early to the role, and Abe Lincoln in Illinois was the hottest play on New York stage. So here from the Royal Gelatin Hour from October 20th, 1938, is Rudy Vallee to introduce Raymond Massey in excerpts from the play Abe Lincoln in Illinois.
Presenting Raymond Massey as Abraham Lincoln in Robert E. Sherwood's great new play, Abe Lincoln in Illinois. We use the words great new play after sober consideration. It is entirely possible that this is the first American play of our time. A play of great force, beauty, and meaning. An utterly human Lincoln played with dignity and superb understanding by Mr. Massey. A brief scene can give you little appreciation of the drama's wide scope. It can, however, bring you something of the atmosphere and feeling of the Lincoln written by Mr. Sherwood and brought to vigorous life by Mr. Massey. Included in our cast tonight are Adele Longmire as Anne Rutledge, Arthur Griffin, Calvin Thomas, and Louis Martin. Raymond Massey in Abe Lincoln in Illinois. Time, a 4th of July morning in the 1830s. Scene, the Rutledge Tavern in the village of New Salem, Illinois. Young Abe Lincoln, recently appointed postmaster of New Salem, is seated in a corner reading a newspaper. 3 men enter. Judge Bowling Green and Josh Speed, friends of Lincoln, with Ninian Edwards, a politician from Springfield. Judge Green speaks.
This is the Rutledge Tavern, Miss Edwards. It's not a gilded palace of refreshment, but the best we have to offer in New Salem.
Make no apologies, Judge Green. Your hospitality is above appearances.
Anyway, the whiskey is wet. Here's the fair proprietress. Good morning, Anne.
Hello, Judge Green. Good morning, gentlemen.
Miss Edwards, Josh,
And
have a seat.
we'll be grateful for a bottle of your father's best whiskey.
Yes, Mr. Speed.
Well, Mr. Edwards, what's your impression of our great and enterprising metropolis?
Distinctly favorable, Mr. Speed. I could not fail to be impressed by the beauty of your location, here on this hilltop in the midst of the prairie land. And when I heard the expressions of lofty patriotism from the throats of your leading citizens, I realized that you are worthy of the blessings which nature has bestowed.
And you were secretly wishing for a good drink. Never mind, Miss Edwards. We're aware that you've been reared in a school of diplomacy, and we salute you as a graceful prevaricator.
I see that I am among friends.
Here you are, gentlemen.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'll be in the next room if you want more.
Mighty pretty girl.
Comes of good stock, too.
With the scarcity of females in these parts, it's a wonder someone hasn't snapped her up.
Someone has, but we're not entirely sure whether he intends to claim the prize. The poor girl promised herself to a man named McNeil, but it turned out his real name's McNamara. Made some money out here, then hooked it back east to his home folks, saying he'd return soon. She's still waiting for him. But your time is short, Miss Edwards, so if you'll tell us just what it is you want, New Salem, we'll do our utmost
I'm
to...
sure you gentlemen know what I want. This year, Sangamon County will send 9 delegates to the Assembly in Vandalia. I have the honor to have been nominated by the Whig Party in Springfield, and I'm looking for good men in all the smaller communities to stand with me. We have a great battle cry. End the reign of Andrew Jackson.
Good. Mr. Edwards, I believe that we can be of assistance to you, and at once. Oh, Abe.
Calling me, Josh?
Put the paper down, Abe. We want to talk to you.
Me? What about?
Abe, this is Governor Edwards' son, Ninian Edwards, from Springfield. I brought Mr. Edwards here for the sole purpose of meeting you. And with his permission, I shall tell you why.
Go right ahead, Josh. I hadn't realized Mr. Lincoln was the one you...
Abe, how would you like to run for the State Assembly?
When?
Now, for the election in the fall.
It's a capital suggestion. Mr. Lincoln, you're precisely the type of man we want. The whole Whig organization will support your candidacy.
What do you think of it, Bowling?
You can count me in as a contributor to the campaign fund. I think it's as fine a notion as I ever heard.
Ain't anybody going to ask what I think?
All right, Abe, I'll ask you.
It's a comical notion, all right. I don't know as if I can give an answer to it offhand, but my first hasty impression is I don't think much of it.
Don't overlook the fact that if elected, your salary will be $3 whole a day.
That's fine money, no doubt of that, and I see what you're getting at, Bolin. I owe you a considerable sum of money, and if I stayed in the legislature for, say, 20 years, I'd be able to pay off.
Oh, I'm not thinking about the debts, Abe.
I know you ain't Bolin, but I got to, and so should you, Mr. Edwards. The Whig Party's a party of sound money, and God save a national bank, ain't it?
Why, yes, among other things.
Well, then how would it look if you put forward a candidate who has demonstrated no earning power, but who has run up the impressive total of $1,500 a day?
I can tell you something about those debts, Mr. Edwards. Abe started a grocery store in partnership with an unfortunate young man named Berry. Their stock included whiskey, and Berry started tapping the keg until he had consumed all the liquid assets, so the store went bankrupt. Berry was non-compos mentis through drink, and Abe voluntarily assumed all the obligations, $1,500 worth. That may help to explain to you, Mr. Edwards, why we think pretty highly of him around here.
It's a sentiment with which I concur most heartily.
I thank you one and all for your kind tributes, but don't overdo them or I'll begin to think that $3 a day ain't enough.
What's the one thing you want most, Abe? You want to learn. This will give you your chance to get at a good library, to associate with the finest lawyers in the state.
I got a copy of Blackstone already, found it in an old junk barrel. How can I tell that the finest lawyers would want to associate with me? Besides, how do you know what my political views would agree with yours? How do you know I wouldn't say the wrong thing?
What are your political leanings, Mr. Lincoln?
They're all towards staying out. What kind of leanings do you want?
We need good conservative men to counteract all the radical firebrands that have swept over this country in the wake of Andrew Jackson. We've got to get this country back to first principles.
Well, I'm conservative, all right. If I ever got in the legislature, you'd never catch me starting any movements for progress or reform. I'm pretty certain I wouldn't even have the nerve to open my mouth.
I told you, Ninian, he's just the type of candidate you're looking for.
As postmaster, Mr. Lincoln, you're in an excellent position to establish contact. The fact is, we want to spike the rumor that ours is the party of the more privileged classes. That's why we seek men of the plain people for candidates.
Could you supply me with a suit of store clothes? The candidate mustn't look too plain.
I think even that could be arranged. Eh, Judge?
I think so.
So think it over, Mr. Lincoln, and realize that this is opportunity unlimited in scope. And now, gentlemen, if you will excuse me, I must put in an appearance at the torchlight procession in Springfield this evening, so I shall be moving on. Goodbye, Mr. Lincoln. This meeting has been a happy one for me.
Goodbye, Mr. Edwards. Good luck in the campaign.
And the same to you.
I'll see you later, Abe. Tell Ann I'll be back to pay for the liquor.
I'll tell her, Bolin. I'm surprised at you, Josh. I thought you were my friend.
I know, Abe. But Ninian Edwards asked me, is there anybody in that godforsaken town of New Salem that stands a chance of getting votes? The only one I could think of was you. I can see that you're embarrassed by this, and you're annoyed. But whether you like it or not, you've got to grow. And here's your chance to get a little scrap of importance.
Am I the kind that wants importance? I ain't running for anything.
You'll deny it, Abe. But you've got a funny kind of vanity, which is the same as saying that you've got some pride and it's badly in need of nourishment. So, if you agree to do this, I don't think you'll be sorry for it or feel that I betrayed you. Well, I've got to be getting back to Springfield, Abe. But I'll be down again in a week or so.
I'll be here, Josh.
Gentlemen. Oh, have they all gone out?
Yes, Ann. Bowling Green said to tell you he'd be back later to pay you what he owes you.
That's all right.
Excuse me, Ann.
Well, what is it, Abe?
I just thought you might like to talk to me.
What about?
That letter you got from New York State.
What do you know about that letter?
I'm the postmaster. I know more than ought to about people's private affairs. Couldn't help seeing that was the handwriting of Mr. McNeil, and I couldn't help seeing from the look on your face that the bad news you was afraid of had come.
Whatever the letter said, Abe, it's no concern of yours.
I know that, Ann. But it appears to me that you've been crying, and it makes me sad to think that something could have hurt you. The thing is, I think quite a lot of you always have ever since I first come here and met you. I wouldn't mention it only when you're distressed about something. It's a comfort sometimes to find a pair of ears to pour your troubles into. And the Lord knows mine are big enough to hold a lot.
You're a Christian gentleman, Abe Lincoln.
No, I ain't. I'm a plain common sucker with a shirt tail so short I can't sit on it.
Well, sit down anyway, Abe. Here, by me. You can always say something to make a person laugh, can't you?
Well, I don't even have to say anything. A person just has to look at me.
You're right about that letter, Abe. It's the first I've heard from him in months. And now he says he's delayed by family troubles and doesn't know when he'll be able to get to New Salem again. By which he probably means never.
I wouldn't say that, Ann.
I would. I reckon you think I'm a silly fool for ever having promised myself to Mr. McNeil.
I think no such thing. I liked him myself, and I still do, and whatever reasons he had for changing his name, I'm sure were honorable. He's a smart man and a handsome one, and I wouldn't blame any girl for loving him.
I guess I don't love him, Abe. I guess I couldn't love anybody that was as faithless as that.
Well, then there's nothing to fret about.
I don't believe you know much about females, Abe.
Probably I don't, although I certainly spend enough time thinking about them.
You're a big man, and you can lick anybody. And you can't understand the feelings of someone who is weak. But I'm a female, and I can't help thinking what they'll be saying about me. All the old gossips all over town, they'll make it out that he deserted me. I'm a rejected woman. They'll give me their sympathy to my face, but they'll snigger at me behind my back.
Yes, that's just about what they would do. But would you let them disturb you?
I told you. It's just weakness. It's just vanity. It's something you couldn't understand, Abe.
Maybe I can understand it, Ann. I got a kind of vanity myself. Josh Speed said so, and he's right. It's nothing but vanity that's kept me from declaring my inclination toward you. You see, I don't like to be sniggered at either. I know what I am, I know what I look like, and I know that I got nothing to offer any girl that I'd be in love with.
Are you saying you're in love with me, Abe?
Yes, I am saying that. I've been loving you a long time with all my heart. You see, Ann, you're a particularly fine girl. You got sense and you got bravery. Those are two things that I admire particularly. And you're powerful good to look at, too. So it's only natural I should have a great regard for you. But I don't mean to worry about it, Ann. I only mention it because if you would do me the honor of keeping company with me for a while, it might shut the old gossips' mouths. They'd figure you'd chuck McNeil for someone else, even me.
I thought I knew you pretty well, Abe. But I didn't.
Why do you say that, Ann? Do you consider I was too forward in speaking out as I did?
No, Abe. I've always thought a lot about you. The way I thought you were. But the idea of love between you and me, I can't say how I feel about that. Because now you're like some other person that I'm meeting for the first time.
I'm not expecting you to feel anything from me. I'd never dream of expecting such a thing.
I know that, Abe. You'd be willing to give everything you have and never expect anything in return. Maybe you're different in that way than any man I ever heard of. But I can tell you this, Abe. Now and truthfully, if I ever do love you, I'll be happy about it. And lucky to be loving a good, decent man. If you just give me time, Abe, to think about it.
You mean, if you took time, you might get in your heart something like the feeling I have for you?
I don't know, Abe. But I do know that you're a man who could fill anyone's heart. Yes, fill it and warm it and make it glad to be living.
I've always tried hard to believe what the orators tell us, that this is a land of equal opportunity for all. But I've never been able to credit it, any more than I could agree that God made all men in his own image. But if I could win you, Ann, I'd be willing to disbelieve everything I've ever seen with my own eyes and have faith in everything wonderful that I've ever read in the poetry books.
Where are you going, Abe?
I'm going to find Bowling Green and tell him a good joke.
A joke? What about?
I'm going to tell him that I'm a candidate for the Assembly of the State of Illinois.
Mr. Massey, our heartiest congratulations on a beautiful performance. Your performance in the entire play, Mr. Massey, as well as here tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Vallee.
And I hope that every listener who possibly can do so will see Mr. Sherwood's play. Not only because it is a fine drama about Abraham Lincoln, but because of its tremendously significant message for all of us in these troubled times. In this connection, ladies and gentlemen, we have asked Mr. Massey to do for us the remarkable speech that closes the drama. The play has followed Lincoln through his years of preparation, his years of first achievement. The concluding scene finds him about to leave Springfield for his first inaugural in Washington. Speaking from the train platform, Lincoln addresses himself to his fellow townsmen, and indirectly to you and to me, and to every citizen who hopes that our American institutions may live on in the world. Mr. Massey, as an older Lincoln, the Lincoln of 1861.
My dear friends, I have to say goodbye to you. I'm going now to Washington with my new whiskers, of which I hope you approve. No one not in my situation can appreciate my feelings of sadness at this parting. To this place and the kindness of you people, I owe everything. I have lived here a quarter of a century and passed from a young to an old man. Here my children have been born, and one is buried. I now leave not knowing when or whether ever I may return. I am called upon to assume the presidency at a time when 11 of our sovereign states have announced their intention to secede from the Union, and threats of war increase in fierceness from day to day. It is a grave duty which I now face. In preparing for it, I have tried to inquire what great principle or idea it is which has kept this Union so long together. And I believe that it was not the mere matter of separation of the colonies from the motherland, but that sentiment in the Declaration of Independence which gave liberty to the people of this country and hope to all the world. This sentiment was the fulfillment of an ancient dream which men have held through all time, a dream that one day they might shake off their chains and find freedom in the brotherhood of life. We gained democracy, and there is now doubt whether it is fit to survive. Perhaps we have come to the dreadful day of awakening, and the dream is ended. If so, I am afraid it must be ended forever. I cannot believe that ever again will men have the opportunity we have had. Perhaps we should admit that and concede that our ideals of liberty and equality are decadent and doomed. I have heard of an Eastern monarch who once charged his wise men to invent him a sentence which would be true and appropriate in all times and situations. They presented him with the words, "And this too shall pass away." That is a comforting thought in times of affliction. And this too shall pass away. And yet, let us believe that it is not true. Let us live to prove that we can cultivate the natural world that is about us, and the intellectual and moral world that is within us, so that we may secure an individual, social, and political prosperity whose course shall be forward, and which, while this earth endures, shall not pass away. I commend you to the care of the Almighty, as I hope that in your prayers You will remember me. Goodbye, my friends and neighbors.
A solid scene and a great conclusion. Massey actually based the way he voiced Lincoln on guidance he received from someone who'd heard Lincoln speak, and that brings a tinge of authenticity along with the humanity that Massey brought to the role. Even though the play, and this scene in particular, really does have that theatrical feel to it. I've seen the movie, and it's one of those films where you can always tell it was based on the play. Still, for Massey's performance, it's well worth watching. After the film, Massey continued to make other projects and take on other parts, but it wasn't the end of his association with Lincoln. He'd actually regularly return to the role over radio, not only for radio adaptations of the film, but for all sorts of plays about Lincoln's life, many of which covered aspects of Lincoln that were not covered at all in the play or were only touched on briefly. I actually did a fall series on the amazing world of radio in 2020 and found them to be really compelling listening. Massey also portrayed Lincoln in some TV episodes and specials in the 1950s, and in 1962, he played Lincoln in the film How the West Was Won. Massey's final performance as Lincoln was in voiceover work for a 1957 short film narrated by Jack Nicholson on the life of Walt Whitman. According to some reports, Massey's interest in Lincoln reached almost obsessive levels, with stories about Massey dressing up as Lincoln at parties and speaking like Lincoln on social occasions. Massey's friend and drama critic George Kaufman is said to have observed that Massey won't be satisfied until someone assassinates him. Yet if Massey was obsessed with Lincoln, it's an obsession that has left us with many performances that offer keen insights into the character and humanity of one of history's greatest figures, a man whose life and leadership is still relevant to us today. It's time for me to close up the old snack wagon, but don't worry, we'll be back with another serving of old-time radio goodness before you know it. If you want to enjoy some of our longer form podcasts, you can feast away at my website at greatdetectives.net. Your emails are also welcome at adam@snackwagon.net.
The Old Time Radio Snack Wagon comes to you from Boise, Idaho. Your host is Adam Graham. Sound production is by Rhines Media, LLC. You can listen to past episodes of the Old Time Radio Snack Wagon as well as connect on social media at our website at snackwagon.net. Email suggestions for episodes to adam@snackwagon.net. This has been the Old Time Radio Snack Wagon.
Until next time, goodbye.